Dad, we bet you can't reach it. Ha ha ha. From your loving kids. What?
Seriously? I got an idea. Victory dance.
Ooh. Ooh. Alrighty, hey ho, ready to go. Before we get started in Onshape, I am going to run through a really quick list of basically what we're using for this project. It's pretty simple. We have 3/4 inch. I have maple veneered plywood. I bought the nice stuff this time because I got kind of sick and tired of working with the standard roofing stuff. You'll see in Onshape that you can change your bit size. Right now it's set up with an 1/8 inch. I might go 1/4 just because we are going through 3/4 inch plywood. It'll go a little bit faster. I might use a compression bit because we're cutting all the way through. I haven't decided that one yet. We'll get there. And other than that, we just need some, glue, whatever you got. Not, like Elmer school glue, but, some sort of wood glue, Type Bond, Gorilla Glue, whatever you got laying around, because we are not going to use screws. We're going to use glues. That's about it. Pretty simple. I'll probably put a layout to how I chop the boards up, but there's only 6 pieces to this project, so you shouldn't need too much coaching, but we'll put it in there to make lives easier. So, having said that, we're going to jump into Onshape. So let's jump into Onshape. I realized for the last couple of projects where we've been handing the files out that I haven't actually shown you guys how to kind of start this because I have a different level of clearance, Lucky me. So you would typically go to these little 3 lines here, you'd click on it, and you would go to Copy Workspace. When you do that, you're going to get the name of the file that we've called it, and then you can call it whatever you want, and then you create a public document. If you have a paid version, I believe that goes away and it doesn't have to be public. Other than that, that's how you guys would probably start the project. I'm not going to because, my clearance is top secret. I, again, have not measured if my plywood is actually 3/4 of an inch, so I'm going to go through that in a second and check. But if you did need to change a variable, they're all sitting right here. So the thickness of the wood, double click on anything, change it to whatever it is, give it a green check, and it will automatically adjust everything to it. All the little, like the tabs that are sticking up and all that stuff, it will accommodate and automatically do it for you. The width is for the overall width of the stool that you can change, which is a sweet variable that Andy threw in there. I have it set up so that you can fit it on a 48-inch wide piece of wood. That's why we have it at this dimension. So if you want to monkey with that, you knock yourselves out. And then the bit size is the last one here. This is a new fun one that we have in there. This is obviously an 1/8 inch bit. If you want to go to a 1/4, you just double clicky this. Automatically says 1/8. You can change it to 0.25. Ding. It says 1/4 inch, and then the cut will be there so that it just accommodates the size of things. Now, I mean, you do have to check to make sure that, see, that 1/4 inch is going to change these knobbies to be a little bit different than the 1/8. 0.125. You'll see that. See, a little bit less. So you got to know what you're doing, at least, or how it's going to affect if you change that bit size. Here we go. As usual, we're going to take one of the pieces. It's the same process for everything. In this case, I'm going to grab the top right here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to, I can't see this far, there we go. Export as DXFDWG. It's going to think, it's going to say, here's what you're going to do. Here's the format. Oh, I don't know if I've seen that one before. Makes sense though to have them positive, right? Here we go. We are going to export that. It's going to come down here and it's going to save. And that is all there is to exporting out of Onshape. I got 5 more pieces. I'm going to time lapse that and then we'll hop back in when we're getting over into Vcarve and how we're actually importing the files. See you soon. Onshape all done and exported all the files because the sides are the same. We only need to export it once. I made the mistake and did it twice and then realized, so you can ignore that part. And it's time lapse, so it goes by too fast for you to notice. So we're gonna try this again because I just ran through the entire process of how to, you know, import everything into Vcarve, create the toolpaths and save them, and I didn't screen record any of it. So hopefully this time I do, you know, a better job than last time, but I don't know. I said I've got a case of the Mondays about a dozen times in the last one because I wasn't making a lot of sense, so maybe it was karma's way. Anyway, we are going to create a new file. I have not, technically speaking, done this once already, so the file size is what it is. We'll leave it at that. If you knew what it is going in, you can edit it here. I don't know exactly what it is, so I'm just going to say okay and change it later. Because I know I'm going to have a bunch of parts, you know, some duplicates on the sides and the steps. I'm going to have 4 different, they're not layers, sheets. So I'm going to just rename this guy now to Stool. And I think the first one that comes up is the back, what did Andy call it? Not support. We're calling it back support for now. I'll rename it after. Okay, we're going to do that. So here's my sheet, all set up. Then we're going to go back to our drawing tab. We're going to import, and then we're going to go to wherever I save things. Where do I save things? Where's that projects folder? Reinforcement, that's the word he used. All right, I'll change that after. So we're gonna open up this file. We're gonna say yes and just ignore that one. And then when we zoom out, hey, there it is, wonderful. So as we can see, it's much bigger than our document. Let's first select everything. And then we're gonna go over to our join open vectors. You can see that there's 11 open, and then we're going to hit join, and then we'll have none, and 2 are closed. Yay. We're going to close that out. I'm going to highlight everything, and this is how I'm just going to quick and dirty see how big this is. As we move it down here, and we can see that we are approximately, I mean, I'll call it 24 just because it'll fit on a 48-inch wide, and we'll call it, let's call it 9 just so we have a little extra room. So we'll go over here to our document dimensions, and we'll call it 24, we'll call it 9, and we're going to throw 0.75 in there for now, and I will figure out if it actually is later. I think I gave this tip a little while ago, but if you select everything and then you hit F9, it will center it to your workpiece, which is lovely, as long as you have both pieces selected. If you only have one, it's only going to center whatever you have selected, so obviously that's not right. So make sure you have it selected. If you need to group things or ungroup them just to make your life a little easier, go for it. But you cannot apply toolpaths to grouped items, so I don't believe it'll let you. Again, same as the chair, I am going to, I'll be the guinea pig. I'll experiment to get all the settings dialed in. So what we see here may not be what's in the actual files, but rest assured, I will make the necessary changes. However, as always, if I'm doing something here that you don't like or you don't agree with or you're not whatever, you don't have to do it. Grab those files, change them, experiment. I know I say it a lot, but it is huge. Yes, you can learn a lot by watching other people, but you also learn a lot by getting in that seat, firing that sucker up and letting her rip. So for the time being, we will go to our toolpaths. That's how we import and join and create our sheets. I'm going to pin this because I don't like it running away on me every time. We're gonna have 2 toolpaths. This is going to be our profile. 0, our depth of cut is 0.75. We are using an 1/8 to keep those little nubbies as small as we can. Again, if you want to do bit changes, if you just want to do, you know, like this isn't going to have any, the radius might be a little bit different. If you used a 1/4 inch for some and an 1/8 in others, you go to town, folks, but I'm just going to use an 1/8 just to make my life nice and simple. If you go to the edit button, we're going to go, it's showing 1/4 inch, 175 for our feeds and speeds. That worked really nice on the cedar for the chair. I'm not sure how confident I am for that for plywood, so I'll guinea pig it up and I will adjust this accordingly and you'll get the best of it. So we'll leave it there for now. This is going to be the outside toolpath, so we go on the outside of it and make everything happy. Climb is what we're using for that. I didn't talk about the editing passes. So again, if you haven't seen the previous videos where I talk about it, if you edit the last pass, you can make it whatever depth you want, which can come in really handy with either not blowing the wood out so hard if it's not taking out so much material, and potentially holding stuff in place a little bit better. So I'm not going to monkey with it for now. I may change it after I go through and cut stuff, but I typically will use kind of, again, I have an 1/8 inch compression bit. I might try compression bits on this guy because you're supposed to do a really nice job of not blowing out the backside. So I don't think that setting the last pass is super important right now. But again, I may have a little pop-up that says, hey, I found this out after. So we'll leave that alone for now. We are going to add tabs. They're 1/4 inch by 0.15. You do have to hit the edit tabs button to bring it up. If you hit constant number, it'll just space them out around. I personally like to just kind of wait till I find that little check mark and drop them in there. Not everybody likes tabs. They don't want to sand them down after. They don't think they're necessary. They don't like them. Whatever the case may be, I'm going to throw them in there just to try and hold it in place because I don't like it when pieces of wood pop up and get zipped by my router. It sucks. So there we go. We've added the tabs. You can delete them all if you want to, and you click on that, they'd all go away. I'm going to leave them because I'm happy, because I'm happy. I am going to add ramps as I always do to save wear and tear on my toolpaths, or not my toolpaths, on my bits, those spinny things. And then we're going to rename this to Stool, enforcement, big word. And then outside, just so I know that that's the outside one, even though I will be using the same bit for inside and outside. So unlike the chair where I was, doing a bit change and I gave the dimension of the bit in my file name, because I'm using the same bit, I don't feel the need to do it. So if you want to, go ahead. We're gonna hit calculate, and then it's gonna pop that up, and I just ignore this. That's my workflow. I go back to my 2D view because I know I still have another toolpath to create. This guy. We'll close this guy out. We'll go back to creating another profile. Most of this is going to stay the same. I think the only thing that's really going to change is that I'm going to go inside this one, to go inside, so we're cutting the right area. I am going to add tabs because I don't like it, again, when things blow out and get all chopped up and sliced up and discombobulated. So I'm just going to add 4 in there to hold it in place nice and steady. It's going to take me, an extra 10 seconds just to sand that down. You can use a file, sandpaper. It's a little awkward, but I'd rather do that than have parts get all sliced and diced. And, sometimes I use those as spacers for other projects. There we go. Close. Add ramps like we always do. We're going to go Stool, back reinforcement, and then we're going to call this the inside one. Just so I know. We're going to hit calculate. I reset my preview every time just to make sure there's nothing sloppy going on. The preview visible toolpaths right here. Visible toolpaths, clicky clicky, and we're going to see that indeed it is cutting all the way through. We've got our tabs in there. I don't know if you guys know about these little buttons up here, but it'll give you like a set view, which is kind of nice sometimes. We have our sheets, we have our toolpaths created, and we have made sure they're all good to go. Now we are going to close this out, and we are going to save our toolpath itself. Visible toolpaths in one file. So I found this out a couple weeks ago that if you are doing a bit change project, I might get in trouble for saying this. I don't believe we have like bit changes built into the sucker yet. I know there's some people that have been posting about writing the macros and all that so that it can do it. I'm super intrigued by that because I'm ultimately fairly lazy. And if I can have a machine do it instead of me, let's do it. For right now, the tip I'm trying to get to is, let's say that one of these was a 1/4 and one of these was an 1/8, and you went to save it, visible toolpaths, to one file. It would give you an error because one would be a 1/4 and one would be an 1/8, and it would say, hey, you can't do that. Just so you know, G.I. Joe. In the meantime, we're using an 8 for both. We're going to save the visible toolpaths to one file. You could also save it to multiple files if you wanted to, but we're not doing that today. We're keeping it simple. We need a little palette cleanser, as Andy said after the chair. So we're going to clicky clicky. I want the outside to be second. I want to cut the inside out first and then the outside. There we go. Now we're going to save our toolpaths. Save our toolpaths. And then we're going to delete this because it's not just the inside, it's the inside and the outside. We're going to hit save. That is about it. I have a couple more to do. The steps are the same, the sides are the same, so I'm not going to create separate ones for them. I'm just going to cut them out twice. And save your file because losing work sucks. And I'm going to time lapse the next couple of bits and we'll be back for gSender. Stick around. Now that I'm finally covered in sawdust from slicing up all the boards, we're going to dive into gSender. So everybody's favorite part. We're going to connect to our machine. Bing, should be good to go. We are idle. We can unlock our oops button. we can load the file, which is going to bring me up to the wrong folder because I haven't actually done this yet. Let's go grab our file. And we're over there and here, and we can start with the back reinforcement. Make sure you get your right board with your right file because, you know, kind of pointless and opening the wrong one. We can see very clearly that that is what we saved out. And now we need to clamp this thing down, zero it, add our bit, and then we can start slicing and dicing. So let's go zero our machine. Yeah, and our piece of wood, you know, whatever we're doing today. So for this part, we are going to be adding our 1/8 inch end mill right there. And we have our precision collet. And we're going to be using our auto zero touch plate, and we need our wrenches. That's about all she wrote for this. So we're going to put the collet in, put the collet nut on. Sometimes this works nicely. We're going to take our bit, slide it up in there as basically far as we can to, can I do this without? So I've got my thumb on the button. I'm twisting just hand tight. And then we use our wrenches. I know everybody likes the button, but the button is not safe. Give it a good twist, good tighten. That's all she wrote for that. Slide it down. Oh, it would have been so much cooler if it didn't bind on me. Oh well, there we are. Spinaroo, make sure we're gonna have enough room for that. That's a tricky one, eh? Ooh, Nelly, that might be close. This might be getting too close to here, so I'm gonna have to really check that. In the meantime, we're still square. We'll get rid of that. Now that we have our 3 of our clamps down, hopefully that one's gonna be good to go. Otherwise, I can always move it back here if I need to. One more. All right, then we are going to plug in, or sorry, not plug in, we're gonna get our magnet, stick it to our collet nut, make sure that's on there good. We are centered over that square, and we're going to use X, Y, and Z. We're going to go auto because it's an end mill. We're going to hit probe. It's going to ask me for touchy, and we're in there. And I think we are good to go. So we'll hit start probe. I again like to hold this guy down just to make sure everybody's good. It'll run through its cycle. Boom. 0 found. Check this back here. Grab our dust shoe. Grab our arm. You'll notice my fancy snaky back here, which is going to undergo some love, but, you know, we're getting there. Okie doke. cutting is done. Everything came out pretty good. I'm gonna go over probably changing to the compression bit instead of the downcut, just because it did a pretty decent job, I have to say. Bottoms are clean, tops are clean. The only thing I'm gonna do before I kind of sand all the edges is I'm gonna grab a utility knife. And again, this is where some of those tabs come in. You know, there's a little nub left over there, so I like to just get in there with the utility knife, shave them down. If they even really, there's not usually too much. So I'm just gonna go around. Again, 6 pieces, handful of tabs, knock them all down, sand it all up, make it nice, and then next step is gonna be assembly. So let's get to sanding.
So I busted out some 120 grit sandpaper just to smooth out all these edges to make sure everything was nice after it got carved up. I then busted out some 220 to start breaking all the edges so you don't get any splinters on your feet while you're stepping on a step stool, because that would suck. And I believe I finished it overall with 180 on the fronts and backs just to make sure it felt smooth to the touch. That's it for sandpaper. So for the assembly of things, you may find that some of those slots are still a little tight, so I used a file and some sandpaper to make sure everything fit together nicely, and once I could, you know, gently persuade them in with a mallet, I'd glue them in place. I used some Gorilla Glue, and once I had it all glued and hammered together, I dropped some weights on it just to make sure there was some pressure on there to keep everything in place until it was dry. Then we were all done. As far as finishing products go, I threw on some Helmsman varnish I had laying around the shop. Certainly not necessary, you know, it just gives a level of protection, so I did that, but you know, you can use anything you got laying around as long as it protects the stool.
Well, I certainly showed those punks who's the boss. You can take the dad out of the Reese's, but you can't take the Reese's out of the dad. Ew, never mind. Never mind that. But seriously, super simple project. Dead useful. It doesn't matter if you're short or tall, there's always somewhere that you need a step stool to get to. If you have any questions or comments, as always, please leave them down below. We have a ton more content coming out. We're trying to create fun projects for you guys to work along with and showing off, you know, what these beasts can do. So make sure you're subscribed, ding, check out the website, and we'll see you around the CNC.
First, you gotta do the truffle shuffle.
Son of a monkey's uncle.
Do it.
I haven't been screen capping any of this.
Do it.